April meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm going to introduce our commissioners. To my left, Commissioner Radke, Vice Chairman Commissioner Twombly. To my right, Commissioner Patton, Commissioner Pasevich, and our Secretary, Commissioner Raymond. We also have up here our Assistant City Planner, Mr. Robert Flanagan, and Recording Secretary, Nancy King. I'm going to ask the Secretary to read your, I'm the Chairman, Jerry Raffagnolo, I'm sorry about that. And I'm going to ask the Secretary to read your application into the record. I'll ask you to come forward and state your name and address, and tell us in your own words what the nature of your hardship is and what you feel the nature of your project is and what you feel the nature of your hardship is. Thank you. Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, application 3657 requests a variance of a minimum front yard on a state highway and a minimum front yard on a city street at 204 Pine Street, Assessors Map 3, Lot 14, Neighborhood Business Zone, Ter Hussein and Zeneb Bibi, applicants. Subsequent to the original application, the highway variance has been removed per Attorney Ziotis' letter, and I'll read the letter, dated April 5th, 2016, ZBA 111 North Main Street, Bristol, Connecticut 06010, RE applicant 3657. Dear Commissioners, we are
Requesting?
Yeah, I don't know. What's that say? Can't read that. Maybe I should read it into the record.
We are... What's the word before withdrawing? I got withdrawing. We are...
I'm sorry.
We are hereby withdrawing our request.
Hereby.
Here you go.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. We are hereby withdrawing our request for a variance of a minimum front yard on a highway. Thank you for your attention in this matter. Sincerely, Jim Ziotis.
And the drawings we're looking at reflect the change?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. And the changes also, I'm sorry, Robert Flanagan, Assistant City Planner for the record. The changes reflected in your packet. Each member has I see a map in front of them. And also the changes are reflected in the digital packet on your laptop in front of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. James Iogas, 271 Farmington Avenue for the applicant. When we made the application, we kind of received the plan from the surveyor, and when he designed the porch on the side of the house, it basically went into the front yard, which really wasn't a design problem because the house protrudes into the front yard anyway. It's an existing non-conforming use, so he just figured that he would make the porch as long as the house was, requiring a variance in the front yard on a highway. So in talking with my clients, they didn't seem to think they needed a porch that was that long in nature, and if we could eliminate one of the variances, we certainly thought coming before the commission in that regard would be better received. This property, as we all know, is old Bristol. Most of these lots are existing non-conforming in terms of their sizes, in terms of the locations of the houses that exist on them. This is a very mixed-use area, and what we've seen over the recent years is the development of Route 72 in that corridor that's been expanded by the state of Connecticut. The state came in and they took property on both sides of the street in order to expand the width of the road, and in so doing, what stands between my client's house and the street itself is the width of a sidewalk. So when you come down the front stairs of the house, you step onto the sidewalk, the street is right there. It became very noisy with the amount of traffic that's been generated there. If you're standing at my client's front yard, to the left is a bar, and of course you have that business use that's there as well. That bar, I think, is about 6 feet away from my client's side yard. Their building is 6 feet away from our side yard. So the orientation of this house on Pine Street and near this VG use, this bar, makes that particular orientation of the house fairly unattractive for residential uses. So what we have to do is we have to try to blend the residential uses that we have in this neighborhood with the commercial uses that are there and the commercial uses that are across the street. So we tried to reorient the house to Benham Street, which used to connect with Pine, but since they expanded and made Pine Street so busy, they decided it was not good planning to have that street go through, and they built a cul-de-sac there instead in dead-end Benham Street. In effect, this becomes a corner lot. So instead of having a front yard of 20 feet, we have two front yards in this particular case. One is 20 feet on Pine, the other one is 20 feet on Benham. The house was non-conforming because it protruded into both front yards on Benham and on Pine. Our request tonight is to add a porch so that the orientation of this house now becomes facing Benham Street. Then they will have an overhang on their porch. The porch is approximately 6 feet wide and it's 20 feet long. It'll fit nicely on the side of this house. It's a two-story brick building. And therefore they'll be able to enjoy at least some of the residential character of their building and their neighborhood by facing it on Benham Street. We are going to be 11 feet from our property line if the variance is approved. But in addition to the 11 feet, there's also a 9-foot buffer between the pavement of Benham Street and the front yard that we're talking about. There's a grass buffer in there that the city put in because they didn't need all of that 50-foot strip for Benham Street. So we've got 9 feet and 11, which really gets us a 20-foot buffer from the street itself. So complying with the spirit of the regulation, we are going to have 20 feet there. So we think that the request is modest. We certainly think that given the nature of the mixed uses in this neighborhood, and we see this on Farmington Avenue all the time, when you mix residential uses in a commercial area, we've got to do something to buffer and protect the residences. And that's what we're trying to do here. Just give them a little bit of privacy on Benham Street so that they can enjoy sitting outside in the summertime, just like we all do in our houses. So that's the nature of our request.
Any questions for the applicant?
Yes. I have a question about the proposed garage.
Yep.
It says you have a 15-foot minimum rear yard, but it's on a 5-foot. Looks like it's on a 5-foot setback.
It's an accessory use.
5 foot is a required setback for accessory buildings. So that's
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Never mind. I'm sorry. My fault.
That's okay. That's permitted.
Yeah.
The only variance request is that porch. You also note the house to the south. The house to the south is only 3 feet off our property line. So the whole neighborhood has this situation where the houses, the lots are smaller than we're used to. But that was old zoning, before the R10 and the R15 zones came into play.
The steps on Pine Street, are they going to stay or go?
They have to stay. Yeah, they're concrete. Yeah, I suppose they could come out, but again, it's another chore.
Is there still an entrance through the
No,
porch?
there's not.
Because it looked like it was sealed up.
Yeah, there's not.
Looks like the existing porch that they have there.
Yes.
Looks like the new porch is only going to be, if I'm looking at the scale correctly, it looks like about a 1/4 inch or so. So it's only going to be 2.5 feet larger than the existing. Would you agree to that?
It may not even be that much, Dave. It might be less than that. It could be more like maybe 1.5 feet actually. But it is. But the existing porch is probably 4 feet, 4.5 feet. And this is going to be 6 feet. You're correct.
Now this is a 2-story porch. Are there stairs to go up to the second floor?
Interior.
Oh, interior only?
Inside. Yes, interior stairs.
Okay, yeah, because I noticed there was 2 outside doors that you moved over towards the center of the house.
Yeah, just interior.
Okay.
And a question about you had mentioned it's a 11-foot variance from the property. What is that measurement taken to the porch itself, or I see there's proposed 4 concrete steps there as well?
Yeah, the steps I don't think need to have a variance to them. I think it's just to the porch, 11 feet.
Mr. Chairman, I believe the steps are what we call projections, and they're allowed per the regulations.
Thank you.
The planters that we're showing there are not, they're mobile, but it's just, again, for aesthetics.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close the... Yes, sir. Oh, is anyone opposed to this application? Thank you. It's been a while since we had a meeting. If not, then I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing on application number 3657.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Chairman votes yes. Discussion, please. Comments? Mr. Radke?
I know that definitely you can see hardship with the dual front yards being on 2 streets, the changes on Pine Street as well, the activity there. It's nice to see that it's the front variance, well, actually on the Pine Street side wasn't needed. The applicant had withdrawn that one. The proposed porch seems like it doesn't come out too far. It seems like a good use here in lieu of the front porch that was mentioned. I don't see a problem with being able to approve this.
Commissioner Twombly?
Mr. Chairman, I agree with the comments from Commissioner Radke. The lot, the house predates zoning regs as noted by Attorney Ziogas. I'm very familiar with this area, this neighborhood. And again, I'm also pleased that the zoning or the request for the Pine Street variance was not needed. I had some reservations on that. The Benham side street, I think, is very reasonable, and I think the applicant is going to add some aesthetics and to his dwelling, and I'm in favor of this application.
Commissioner Savage?
I agree with the other commissioners. I think the neighborhood that took a ride around the neighborhood, I'm kind of familiar with it too. A lot of non-conforming houses. I mean, even the next 2 houses up the street, I think, are even closer than the proposed porch is going to be. I think the new porch, like I was looking at the drawings, it's only going to be 1 or 2 feet larger than the existing one on the house, and I'm very happy that someone's taking the time to improve that neighborhood. And so I'm in favor of the proposal.
Mr. Rea?
I agree with all the commissioners. It's a very tough lot. With the change in regulations, I mean, it's not conforming the existing house. So, but I have no problem. I think it's going to be a plus for the neighborhood.
Thank you. And I agree too. I'm glad that you took that one variance away. It's nice to see some of these homes, after all we went through with the Route 72 changes and variance requests and everything else. I think it's a nice way to end that cul-de-sac and really improve that piece of property. So thank you very much. If there are no further comments, I'll entertain a motion on application 3657. Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Commissioner, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Don't you forget it.
Yeah. Application 3657, variance of a minimum front yard on a city street at 204 Pine Street, Assessor's Map 3, Lot 14, Business Neighborhood, Zone, Ter Hussein, and Zanib Bibi, applicant, be approved as submitted.
Second.
According to the plans and documents as submitted, along with the following stipulations. and I will read
The letter.
Yeah.
You can just reference it.
Yeah,
Say,
I'll reference,
according to the changes in Mr. Ziotis' letter.
Okay.
Ziotis' letter.
according to the letter from Attorney Ziotis.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor, Commissioner Pasevich?
Aye.
Commissioner Raymond?
Aye.
Commissioner Radke?
Aye.
Commissioner Twombly?
Aye.
Chairman votes yes, your application is approved. Next item is approval of the minutes. Everyone taking a look at the minutes, if there are any changes, omissions. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. I'm sorry. And Commissioner Patton will vote on the approval of the minutes.
Okay.
If there are no changes, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Minutes are approved. The next item is the election of officers, which have been postponed since however long ago. And I'd like to start by nominating Commissioner Rick Raymond as Secretary of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
Any other nominations? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve Commissioner Raymond as Secretary of the Zoning Board of Appeals. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Rick.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. At this time, I'd like to nominate Jeff Tromley for Vice Chairman.
I'll second that.
Are there any other nominations for Vice Chairman? If not, I'll ask for a vote on Jeff Twombly as Vice Chairman.
Aye.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Jeff.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Jerry Raphael as Chairman. Second.
Are there any other nominations for Chairman? If not, I'll ask for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And Chairman votes aye. Thank you very much for your continued confidence. And the last item on the agenda for tonight is the consideration of the increase in fees for zoning board of appeal that Mr. Flanagan has prepared for us and modified at my request in the February meeting. And what this analysis shows is that essentially we have not changed our fees in over 12 years. The last recorded change was prior to 2004. And we've been asked to look at that to see if there's any changes that might be warranted. And if you look at the page that says ZBA fee analysis, you can see that we're falling short on the cost of preparing the meeting notices and the staff requirements for running the meetings by about $1,800 or $1,900 over the last 12 months. We had 13 applications. The total cost was about $2,900, and the fees that we collected were $1,000. It's very low activity in terms of what we generate for requests throughout the year. The debate continues to be whether or not we want to impose additional burden on the taxpayers or try to recover some additional cost to ease some of our budget, some of the budget pressure that we're all feeling right now. Any thoughts, comments from the commissioners?
I'll give you my opinion. I'm usually against raising taxes or raising fees, but tough time now. State's in turmoil. Our city needs money, and this is a one-time fee. I don't have a problem increasing it. I just don't want to. We can't double it. If we increased it, I don't know, 25%, 50%, whatever, because the fees aren't that expensive compared to other towns. We haven't even caught up to them. So.
If you look at the last page, the one that he added since the last meeting, you'll see some of them are $400, $500. Thomaston and Waterbury and West Hartford, West Haven are up in the $200 range, and we're still at $100.
Yeah, I think you should compare ourselves to like maybe Waterbury, New Britain, and Meriden as far as city population and everything else. And I notice Waterbury and New Britain are a lot more expensive than us. Meriden seems to fall in line, but I think a little bit of an increase would be warranted.
Mr. Chairman, do we give any thought about doing like a two-tier, like Hamden and Norwalk have with commercial? I wouldn't mind seeing a separate fee for commercial as opposed to residential. I really hate raising the bar too much for the residents of Bristol. It is tough times and it's hard, and I want to discourage people from coming forward. And I think a commercial increase would be more relevant, a little higher than residential.
That's been brought up a couple times. The pro for that is it reduces the impact on the residential. The negative fact is the administrative costs and having to keep track of two different rate structures for residential and commercial. Mr. Flanagan may want to comment on that.
Just quick question. Is there a breakdown of the percentage of commercial versus residential?
Yes, one of the 13 applications was commercial, the other 12 were residential. Okay. So even if we raised commercial significantly, it wouldn't have a significant impact on the overall fees generated. So that's the other piece of it.
Well, it didn't so far, but doesn't mean going forward it's not going to happen.
Commissioner Twombly, I just think I expressed this to the chairman this afternoon on the phone. I think from an administrative point of view, I would, if you were going to raise it, I'd like to just see you raise it modestly across the board. Again, administratively, it just makes it easier for us in the office to this is the zoning board of appeals fee, this is the appeal for a variance, or I'm sorry, this is the fee for an appeal. We certainly can go down that road, but we may get into discussions with applicants. If they're in a residential zone but they have a commercial use, it starts to open up discussions that I don't necessarily think we want to have at the counter. So I'm certainly not trying to throw a roadblock here, but I would say the bulk of the activity, and I haven't done an exhaustive study, but from what I've seen, the bulk of your activity is residential. Businesses find a way to work with site plans that are submitted. We'll have meetings with businesses. We'll tailor site plans so that they don't necessarily need to come and get a variance. So I think 95% of your activity is still going to be residential. So you can raise it. It might help somewhere down the road, but it's not going to make a significant increase, a dent in the shortfall.
Thank you. Just again, my just my throwing it out there on the table is I'm just trying to look for a little less impact to the residents. You know, I don't want to see it go up too much.
Mr. Flanagan, I'm looking at the land use application fees, and it said prior to 7104, it was $100. How far back does that go for $100?
That's as far as Mr. Weiner could remember. We certainly could go back and look even further, but it's at least 12 years old.
12 years and we haven't raised any fees.
Right, but it could go back even further. That's a good observation.
Mr. Flanagan, just to make sure I'm looking at this the right way. It looks like the number on here is 13 applications.
Yep.
However, 3 carried over, so we're really talking 10 unique applications in that period.
Right. What you'll see is, so on September 2015, you had 3 applications in front of the board in September, and those were brand new applications, if I'm carrying that across, so it was $300. And then 1 application was carried forward, so then you had 2 brand new applications but in October, but still 3 applications in front of the board. So if you look at the application fees collected, and then in November 15, you had 2 applications carried over, and only 1 new application in front of the board in November 15, so we only collected $100.
Okay. So with 13, break it down, that's...
It's 13 total for the year.
Okay.
Yep.
So about $223 per variance, and we're running about $123 shortfall per variance.
Yep.
And that's prior to the state fee, correct? $60.
And we collect an additional, and that's a very astute observation, so this application fee of $100, and I think I called that out somewhere before, the applicant also pays an additional $60, which passes through our office and goes right to the state. We make a quarterly report, and we send a check to the state every 3 months. So it's $160 is the actual fee.
Mr. Radke, any thoughts?
It has been quite a while since application fees have gone up. Definitely agree with the challenges in terms of if we try to split it up in terms of what type of application appeal came before us. And what I'm looking at too is just even how much the pre-notices, post-notices are, which aren't even being covered.
Somebody mentioned a $25 increase. If you do a 2% rate of growth compounded for 12 years, it comes out to $126. So, I think just at a minimum, a couple percentage points per year over the last 12 years would have brought us to $125. So, in terms of a suggestion or proposal, that's kind of where I'd be sitting in the $125 range. And for ease of administration, I would just keep it that way across the board. And the activity is so low that we're just not going to, without doubling or even more significantly increasing it, we're not going to cover the cost, but I'd like to at least get something going in that direction to help the overall budget situation.
And Mr. Chairman, if the board did go that route, then obviously then the total application fee would be $185 and would still be under $200.
Yep. What's required procedurally? Do we need a motion at this level, or are you going to prepare something?
I certainly can prepare a motion for another meeting, or I think just a motion of the board and a vote I think would be appropriate, and then I can pass that along to the council, and we can have that ratified. It's totally within your discretion.
I would entertain a motion to increase the zoning board of appeal fee from $100 to $125. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Chairman, I mean to interrupt, I apologize. Can you have an effective date for that?
Effective, how fast can you get through council? Effective May 1st, June 1st?
I don't know if I can make this council agenda. If you wanted to make it, why don't we make it July 1st?
July 1st.
Start with the fiscal year.
Entertain a motion to increase the zoning board of appeals application fee to $125 effective June 1st, 2016.
July
1st.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, Commissioner Radke?
Aye.
Commissioner Twombly?
Aye.
Commissioner Pasevich?
Aye.
Commissioner Raven?
Aye.
And Chairman votes yes. Thank you very much. Any other business to come before the board this evening? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
See a second.
Who's the second?
Who's second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Radke. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much. Go you guys.